Yeah, you're good.
Good. Okay.
Can you take a look, honey, at the thing and just tell me if I need to?
So, sometimes in the videos we
You're in
look
airplane
like
mode?
I am.
we look like we're too far away, like I'm at the edge of the
That's
video
right.
and you're at the. Do you prefer that?
No, I prefer you guys being closer together.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It looks a little bit.
I keep that's why I keep trying to coach you guys to like not
yeah.
lean to the side.
Is this a little bit
Okay,
tilted?
Yeah, go ahead. You can shift it and it'll stay because the tape will help it stay. Or you can also use that lever to the side.
Yeah. How do I,
Just kind of.
Jas,
Let me see how much room you got here. Let me.
Oh, there we go,
you got it.
any progress on microphone?
You know, I will let you know. In the moment there is. Yeah, there's other stuff going on, and you know, but like I said, any updates you'll be the first to know. Yeah.
I'll be first to know. You'll be second to know.
All right.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
First to know outside of the duo.
Get our priority
Production
straight.
duo. So how am I?
Make sure I got my phone. Oh yes.
It's a very nice coat, and it's a lovely color.
Thank you. Yeah. I do like unusual. Leslie hates it.
Really?
You gonna wear that coat?
Yeah, that's something I heard my mom ask my dad often growing up, and she was never wrong. About the interrogations. Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to make her an ogre.
Sure.
You know, in the same way that she might wear something, I'll say, "Oh, those look like clown shoes," and then I'll usually get hit.
Right.
Clown shoes? What do you mean?
You need some slapstick involved if you're going to be accused.
Oh, we're already recording.
Yeah,
You started
I
it.
did.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal.
Well, whenever you're ready.
So I'm good where I'm sitting, and we're all good.
Yeah.
Obviously, you tell us if that wasn't.
Lighting is good.
Yeah.
And last time, did you have it closer? Because you said the volume was better.
Well, I had it closer because there was only one person I needed to fit into the frame.
Ah.
The top of Jazz's hat is not. It's just giving the top, which I think does not matter. So
It's fine.
you guys are centered.
Cool. Okay, great. So I won't suddenly get taller during the course of the video, so I think less to worry about. So yeah, well, I'm excited to be back here with you today.
Okay.
To talk some more, and I know that when we said in advance that I was going to be hearing about your guru, I have to say that I presumed that this is going to be a conversation about things like curry and Sanskrit and and the Mahabharata maybe. And,
yes.
And I've come to find out that you meant guru in a different sense.
No, actually no. Well, I think yours is more correct.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really more correct.
Quite the feather in my cap.
Let me give you a little background. Remember the story of Dr. Neer and needing glasses because I was experiencing double visions when I was teaching. Well, after the episode with Dr. Neer and my supervision, I decided that I needed something like yoga to sort of calm me down. That's really what I was looking for. An exercise like yoga that would keep me calm while I was doing this difficult teaching situation with a lot of recalcitrant teenagers who were really criminal and really bad folk. And some tough times. A lot of threats to my personhood from people in class. So I was a little shook up about it. And as I say, I was at that time a thin person and smoking, maybe a half pack a day, drinking lots of coffee, so I was kind of wired. And then I had the vision issue, and I said, I need something to help me out. So, long story short, I met a friend who had just started yoga, and he said, you've got to go to the yoga master who started yoga in San Francisco in the 50s before anybody knew what yoga was. And I said, well, that sounds good. He says, he's also a man who is a former Mr. America, 1949. And he will teach you not only yoga, but he will teach you weightlifting so that you will change your whole body and transition into being a larger person, which is, I explained that's what I wanted. I wanted to put some meat on my bones. And I wanted to, I guess, be more formidable. So in case I got any threats, I'd be able to handle them.
Well, it makes sense as a motivation.
Yeah.
Because you have these kids who
Yeah.
And probably part of why they're being so aggressive towards you is because you weren't intimidating physically,
Yeah.
and there's that pecking order where
Exactly
they
right.
think they can get away with it.
Exactly
They don't
right.
fear retaliation,
Sure.
and maybe they should be
Yeah. Yeah.
more fearful. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's hardly any repercussions for their behavior. In other words, you say, okay, you're out of order. You go down to the principal office. Well, there are 20 people sitting in chairs in the principal's office, maybe for 15, 20 minutes, and then they're allowed to go back to class. So nothing is really done by way of remediation or correction, and so you still have the same issues. So anyway, I took up my friend's advice and went to meet Mr. Walter Baptiste. Mr. Walter Baptiste had his yoga studio and weightlifting studio at Powell near Market, that historic corner that I was mentioning to you, the turntable for the downtown cable car. So you walked up a long flight of stairs, and suddenly you had this great auditorium where yoga was being practiced. And again, let's put this in context. This is 1970. Okay. So he started his studio in 1954. And again, nobody was doing these kinds of things. And you couldn't get a real important weightlifting coach, to my knowledge, because I had looked around, and there were some people who were lifting weight, but they weren't about to teach you. These were guys who were maybe professional. So Walt sat me down, and he said, a very sweet man, bald-headed, short and roly-poly kind of guy with a beatific smile. And he said, tell me a little bit about yourself. So I gave him my whole saga, just as I'm doing now. And he says, I don't think you're quite ready for yoga. He says, you need something to stabilize you. He said, I see your energy is all over the place. And in yoga, you're not going to be able to sit still and enjoy yoga. So I said, well, I appreciate that. What do you think I should do, Walter? He says, well, I want you to come into the studio on Monday, and there'll be some new students, and we're going to teach you weightlifting. Now, fast forward ahead. 6 months have passed. I'm now 30 pounds heavier. And really strong. And I said, well, Walter, what about yoga? He says, not for you.
I like when teachers give honest answers like that.
He says, it's not for you. He says, your path is with the weights. That's why you're doing so well. And I'm going to continue to guide you. And I want you to eat in my restaurant. So downstairs he is. No, excuse me, jumping ahead. In the process of my improvement, he switched and bought a Masonic temple at Arguello and Clement.
Wow.
An old Masonic temple, and that became a center for Walt Baptiste and his lovely wife, Magana. Magana was absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, a yoga teacher, very, very graceful, very learned, and they were a dynamic duo, the two of them. And so she would teach dance and yoga, and he would do yoga and weightlifting. So they set up this great center. Students were coming in right and left, where they heard about it. And again, early 70s. He developed a restaurant called the Hungry Mouth, where he would serve things like health foods before anybody really was aware of health foods, using all kinds of spices and encouraging us to take more cayenne and turmeric and things that we had never heard about at that time. Me and my buddies. I lured 2 buddies in.
Did you?
And one of them is no longer with us, but the other one lives in Vallejo.
Okay.
He's a younger guy, but a very good friend, and he has been through all of this with me. And transitioned from, in his case, from being a delinquent, serious Hispanic gang person who spent his early life sniffing glue, and then going to North Beach to gang fight. So this was a serious punk, a serious outlaw.
Right.
He was at the same time lured into meeting Walter. And Walter said again, this is a weightlifter. So his name is Francisco. So Francisco gained weight as well and became a competitive bodybuilder.
Wow.
And
What a change.
Got rid of his criminal activity, his drinking, his drug taking, married a wonderful Swedish girl. They now have 2 grown children. He became a 40-year employee of PG&E, working up to an enormous salary, and became born again, separately. Became born again.
Mm-hmm.
So he changed his life as dramatically as you can imagine.
Yeah.
A respectable citizen of Vallejo, kind of almost a civic leader, and who raised a family, has a great marriage, and still lifts weights. And he's about 10 years younger than myself. So, but we did this path together with one other friend, the bear, who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. And the bear got to the point of being over 300 pounds. Not so much with the weightlifting, although he did that, but he was a ferocious eater. He developed this penchant to be quite a big eater, and wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, that's what he wanted to do. So whenever we would see him, the bear would be at the restaurant with a hungry mouth.
Which he had, so I'm sure he said, "This is the place for me."
Yeah, exactly.
Where have you been all my life?
Yeah. So we would go in there, watch the people do their yoga, watch the exotic belly dancing that would go on with Naganya and her troupe, and it was just a lot of fun. And also, what we did realize is that we had some spiritual activity going on with Walt, unbeknownst to us. He was working his magic with us, and Walt is a follower of Yogananda.
Yeah, I assumed that he had to have been linked to Yogananda because at that time, I think he said that he started in the 40s or 50s.
Right.
Yes. When Yogananda came here in, I think, the late 20s.
Yeah.
He was the first person who'd set foot on
Yes.
in North America doing yoga,
Yes.
and before him it was I'll remember his name when it's too late, but
there is
Swami Vivekananda was the first person to take it out of India, really.
Okay.
And there's a lecture that I read of him basically lecturing the British Empire while they were still occupying India.
Oh my God!
So there's a lineage of these guys. But,
Sure.
But if someone's teaching it in the 50s, it's got to be Yogananda.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then he had other spiritual leaders in India who he was in touch with, and Mayor Baba, especially the fellow who didn't speak for years, found Walt to be a ray of light and championed him. So Walt became a spiritual master and would go to India quite a bit, come back with new wisdom.
That's very interesting.
And then he established a center in El Salvador. So that was a retreat for many members who had come to him with a troubled past, alcoholics, drug addictions, and they became involved with his path, so to speak, and would often spend weeks in El Salvador at his complex there. So he died, Walt died, in 2007 at the age of 83. His wife, Naganya, continued on, and she died about 6 years later at the age of 92. And still a beautiful woman, even up to her long life, maintained that dignity, that beauty, that grace.
Yeah.
They have 3 children who are all teaching yoga. The son teaches to the NFL yoga practices to hardcore football players, to relax them, to get them to be more supple, to have more flexibility in their pelvis and hips, and so he's doing that. The girls are teaching locally, carrying on the tradition, and one is in Marin and one is here in the city. I'm still connected to them.
Are you?
In terms of keeping up the friendship.
Yeah.
I wrote a beautiful poem about Naganya share that sometime.
Sure.
That's printed in my poetry book.
Mm-hmm.
And Walt, I owe a great deal to them because that transition got me from being kind of not sickly, but maybe a little bit less than secure. I didn't feel secure in my personhood at a thinner weight, and again, the addictions of smoking, a lot of coffee, and not eating well. So then that transition to 30 pounds, my God, what it did for me to increase my confidence was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And then that environment that initially inspired you to seek out that kind of direction with these kids that were threatening you. I mean, was there a change in their behavior?
Yes. There was a passage of time, and some of those kids moved on to other teachers, other classes.
Sure.
But I had 2 or 3 altercations in the school where I just wouldn't take it, wouldn't take any abuse, and I manhandled these kids.
Yeah.
And I did push them into the elevator and mostly throw them because they had no weight compared to me and no strength. I mean, even some of the bigger guys, they were still 16 years old, weren't fully developed, and they weren't expecting me to get physical. At that time, I didn't get in any trouble. Today, I'd be in jail.
Which is also so. I mean, of course, we could talk about that, but it's so crazy how just because we seem to have this totally unreasonable expectation of someone who is quote unquote in a position of authority to be the sacrificial lamb. And
take the abuse.
Yeah, and to really underestimate the abuse and the abusive potential of people who are, again, quote unquote children. Well, the word children can be rather misleading.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of how the nuns that I talked about before, back in grammar school, how they would have handled the situation.
Right.
And one sister comes to mind. Her name was Martina, and Martina was a tiny little thing, but very tough. And one delinquent kid would always be causing trouble. He was a little bit older than us, probably had been left behind a grade or 2, so he had resentment. He wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. So one day he brought a gun to school.
Wow.
Okay, not loaded.
Right.
So,
but of course you don't know that right away.
Yeah, Martina didn't know this, so she sees him playing with a gun. She goes up, takes the gun, slaps him 3 or 4 times. She says, "Don't you ever bring this gun to school." Right. He's completely mortified. He wasn't expecting that, so he slapped him out and took his gun away.
Well, it's only right that something so outrageous would be met with a proportionate escalation in response. Otherwise, people don't really understand how big of a deal it is.
Sure.
And all this kid gloves. I mean, of course, I don't want to get up on a rant about this, but but we really infantilize it to their detriment. They don't realize the consequences.
And they forget the old maxim of spare the rod and spoil the child, which seemed to be very good for our ancestors, and not too many of those people became criminal.
Right.
I mean, many of them really led upstarting lives once they got straightened out.
Sure.
So Walt was so critical that I wanted to spend time about this because it not only enhanced my physical well-being and intellectual and psychological, spiritual well-being, but it also provided me with the knowledge that my art was an important thing to me, and I wanted to be able to be well enough to continue to do it and to be really more involved with my art than ever before.
And having more energy physically, but having more physical energy, you think really factored into your ability to commit yourself to it?
I was just a better, more interesting, more vital person in this transformation. So therefore, doodling, something that appeared to be doodling and sketching rose to a new level of, hey, I want to do art. I want to spend my life yes, I need to work right now, but I can also take my art more seriously.
Mm.
So then I found the Fort Mason art classes, and that's where I spent, as I say, 17 years in that situation, improving my skills, really self-taught.
I have a question.
Sure.
I wonder what you mean by well enough to do your art. You just said it a
yeah.
minute ago or so.
In other words, before the transformation,
Yeah.
I was full of nervous energy.
Yeah.
So I was sort of wired, and I didn't like that because I wasn't calm enough or well enough to sit down and spend 2 hours painting. So now I'm 30 pounds heavier. I've got a better sense of selfhood. I'm not. Oh, I stopped smoking. I threw the glasses away within a few months.
That's amazing.
I never had any more problem with the double vision. Still today, do not wear prescription lenses.
That's really quite something.
See?
Yeah.
So in other words, to answer your question, Elizabeth, it was going from a place of being not, I shouldn't say unwell, but just not vital within myself, you know, not having a sense of personhood.
Like sturdiness.
Sorry?
Like sturdy.
Yeah,
Within
yes,
yourself.
that's right, yeah. The physical sturdiness
And mental
transferred
hardiness.
into mental
Yeah.
confidence and emotional confidence. And life just became better and better. And I stayed with Walt for 15 years. I had that advantage.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when I met Leslie, I introduced her into this environment to some degree. So we would eat at that restaurant, bring friends in. And I was already doing my weightlifting. Now I was trained. So Francisco and I went to another gym and we became workout partners. When you work out seriously with a couple hundred pounds, you need someone to watch you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it spotting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure you've heard that. But it's vital because all of a sudden you're doing repetitions and you think, oh well, I just a couple more.
Yeah.
But the muscle gives out. The fatigue level hits you very dramatically.
Yeah.
So your partner who is spotting picks up the weight with you and puts it back in the rack,
Yeah.
and you avoid serious accident.
Right.
I saw many people have the weights crash down on them,
My goodness.
which is really brutal.
Yeah.
Well, that could be
Yeah,
fatal.
it could be fatal. You can choke your windpipe. You can crush your breastplate.
Yeah.
You know, clavicle.
Yeah.
Breakage.
Well, it's quite a bit of weight. Which is
exactly.
obviously the point. But
Exactly.
if you're not able to,
Right.
and if you're not aware of your suddenly, rapidly waning
Yes.
ability to support it, then
Yes. Two important little weightlifting stories. You may have heard of Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne was a very famous San Francisco, Oakland young man who was frail and sickly and trained himself to become a weightlifter and a bodybuilder and became prominent enough to have his own TV show. And millions of people suddenly became aware of Jack LaLanne. Tiny little man, very strong, very strong. And why it's important to mention him is he used to do feats of strength on his birthday. And one time he came right here, and he dragged a boat with his teeth, a rope in his teeth, and swam with the boat back of him.
My goodness.
Yeah. Powerhouse,
Little Labrador.
little tiny man. And so I talked to him. I made a point of meeting him, and I met him several times. And I said, Jack, I said, what's the secret on your workouts? How do you maintain intense workouts? He says, well, don't tell anybody. He says, but I drink wine. I said, you drink wine? He says, yeah, two glasses of wine before I work out.
Was there a follow-up about it?
No, that was, he never, I read his books, I watched it on TV, my mother was a big fan because he used to have a housewife, not lifting, but using the cords, you know, the rubber bands.
Oh, yeah.
And so he'd have a sit-down workout, my mom would be watching Jack, and she'd be using her extensions, these
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bands,
yeah, yeah.
and feeling terrific about it. So I was very happy that Mom was doing that. So, so Jack would do these outrageous things. So let's see, he passed away. Oh boy, he lived to be close to, I believe, close to 100. Yeah, it was quite something.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and again, you know, maybe 5'5", competing in competitions, winning a lot, and he had this incredible drive to work out. I mean, really, for hours. But the wine was his secret that he told me. Now,
Talk about counterintuitive.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect that.
Yeah.
So one time I met Mr. Menser. Mr. Menser was a Mr. America in the 70s. Really buffed out, outrageously big man, maybe about 270, a solid muscle, you know, a winner. And I also met Arnold Schwarzenegger several times. And
Just offhandedly, you mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to be asking you more about that.
No, I
of
will.
course.
I will tell you that story too.
Please.
That's really funny. So anyway, Mr. Menser, Mike Menser, is now at the top of his game, Mr. America. I had a chance to work out with him for maybe 10 minutes before I was exhausted and couldn't continue. And I couldn't continue the poundage he was using. Incredible stuff. So I said, Mike, what's your secret? And he says, you see that thermos? I said, yeah. He says, open it up. Open it up. Black coffee. A full thermos of black coffee while he worked out. Just finish your set, go over, have a glass hot, piping hot coffee.
Wow.
That sounds
Back.
great.
So everybody's got their secrets.
Yeah.